Do you know that there are communities in the eastern part of Nigeria who forces young women to get married to dead men in order to keep their family name? Fasten your seatbelts as I share the mysterious tale of Nkem and the young maidens of Umuagu community. Welcome to Pixel Tales, where we share interesting real-life African stories. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share my videos for more people to see. Click on the notification bell to be notified anytime I upload new videos. Please drop your comments in the comment section below. Thank you. In the heart of Umuagu, a once thriving village nestled in the shadow of the great hills, life had been full of joy and hope. The men were strong, the women industrious, and the children laughter echoed through the valleys. But all of this changed when a brutal war over land disputes broke out between Umuagu and the neighboring village of Unsu. The war claimed the lives of many young men, leaving behind grieving families and a village full of sorrow. When the war was over, the people of Umuagu were left to pick up the pieces of their lives. But the loss of so many young men created a new problem. The continuation of the villagers' lineage was in jeopardy. The elders, desperate to preserve their family lineage and the village's future, they turned to an ancient, almost forgotten custom of forcing women to marry the spirits of the deceased men. This way, they believed that the dead could still father children, ensuring that their lineage would continue. Nkem, a beautiful and intelligent young woman of 18, was among those caught in this dark tradition. She had lost her beloved Shima in the war. Shima was not just a lover to her, but her closest friend. His death left a void in her heart that nothing could fill. After months of mourning the deceased, Shima's mother and her family, they all decided that Nkem should get married to their dead son in order to save and preserve their family name. One day, Shima's mother, Mama Ifoma, came to visit Nkem. She brought with her an air of authority, her voice carrying the weight of tradition and expectation. Nkem, my daughter, she began, Shima may be gone, but his lineage must not end with his death. You must marry his spirit and bear his children, so that his name lives on. Nkem was shocked at her words. The thought of marrying a man who was no longer alive, of bearing his children, filled her with dread. She wanted to scream, to cry out against the injustice of it all, but Mama Ifoma's pleading eyes held her in place. Nkem knew that in Umuagu, refusal was not an option. The village believed that the spirits of the deceased would curse any woman who defied this practice, bringing misfortune and suffering to her and her family. Despite her fear, Nkem tried to resist. Mama Ifoma, she said, her voice trembling, I loved Shima with all my heart, but he is gone now. How can I marry someone who is no longer here? Mama Ifoma's face adding, Nkem, this is not just about you. This is about our entire village, our future. If you do not do this, the gods will punish us all. Think of your family, your mother and father. Would you bring shame and disaster upon them? Nkem was shattered. The pressure from Shima's mother was unbearable, and the fear of angering the gods loomed large in her mind. She had heard stories of women who had refused to marry the spirits of deceased men, stories of madness, infertility, and death. The elders spoke of these women in harsh tone, warning others of the consequences of defying the custom. Nkem was not the only maiden who was asked to marry a dead man. Across Umuagu, other women were being forced into similar unions. Ada, a widow in her 30s, was pressured to marry a deceased lover who had died in the same war long time ago. Due to fear of the deity, she married the spirit of the deceased, where she later gave birth to 2 children for the dead man. Even young girls like Ezine, who had just turned 16, were not spared. Ezine's parents arranged her marriage to a man she had never met, who had died before she was born. The idea terrified her, but like Nkem, she knew she had no choice. The entire village was caught in a web of fear, bound by the belief that the wrath of the gods would fall upon anyone who refused. The children born from this union were seen as special, but they also carried the burden of their mother's pain. They were heirs to the deceased, inheriting not just their names, but the trauma of their mother's circumstances. These children grew up in the home filled with sorrow and silence, the weight of tradition pressing down on them from birth. Nkem's life became a living nightmare as the day of her marriage to Shima's spirit approached. The preparations were made in secret, away from the prying eyes of the outside world. She felt as though she were being led to her doom, each step heavier than the last. At night, she was haunted by the dreams of Shima, his once kind eyes, now cold and distant. She would wake up in a cold sweat, the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. During the day, she went through the motion of life, her spirit crushed under the weight of her impending fate. One evening, Nkem was unable to bear the torment any longer. She wandered to the riverbank outside the village. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and red, but Nkem saw none of its beauty. Her thoughts were consumed by mystery. She wished she could run away, but where would she go? And even if she escaped, would the gods not find her and punish her for her disobedience? As she sat by the water, lost in her thoughts, she heard a voice behind her. Nkem, you don't have to do this. Startled, she turned to see Eze, the village school teacher. Eze had always been kind to Nkem, encouraging her to learn and grow despite the limitations placed on women in Umuagu. He sat down beside her, his presence calming. I know what they are asking of you, he said quietly. It is not right, and you know it, but there is a way out. Nkem looked at him with tear-filled eyes. How, Eze? How can I escape this? The elders, the gods, they will never let me go. I'm trapped. Eze shook his head gently. The gods are not the ones trapping you, Nkem. It is the fear that had been installed in you by the elders and the old custom. But fear can be overcome. You are not alone in this. There are others who feel the same, who want to break free from this chain. He then told her about a group of women who had quietly begun to resist the elders' demand. They met in secret, sharing knowledge and skills that would allow them to support themselves independently. They had learned to read and write, to trade goods, and to think for themselves. They were building a future where they could live free from the oppressive traditions that had bound their mothers and grandmothers. For the first time, in what felt like an eternity, Nkem felt a spark of hope. But what if the elders find out? What if the gods really do punish us? Eze smiled softly. The gods have always favored those who seek justice, Nkem. The elders have twisted their teachings to maintain control. But you must remember that true power lies within you. If you join us, you will be taking the first step towards a better future, not just for yourself, but for all the women of Umuagu. Nkem's heart raised with a mixture of fear and excitement. The idea of standing up to the elders, of challenging the very tradition that had dictated their life, was both terrifying and exhilarating. Could she really do it? Could she reclaim her life, and in doing so, help others reclaim theirs? That night, Nkem made a decision. She would join the group of women in their secret meetings, learning the skills she needed to survive on her own terms. She would find strength in their shared struggles and courage in their collective resolve. Together, they would challenge the oppressive custom that had kept them in the shade for so long. The weeks that followed were filled with quiet rebellion. Nkem met with the group in secret, hidden away from the prying eyes of the village. There, she learned to read and write more frequently, to sew and weave, to trade her goods in nearby markets. She finds solace in the company of women who had suffered as she had and who were now determined to change their fate. They continued to pretend compliances with the elders' demands while secretly building their strength. They saved what little money they could, gathering resources to leave Umuagu if necessary. They dreamed of a place where they could live free, where their children would not be bound by the ghost of the past. But the elders were not blind to see the changes happening in the village. They noticed the quiet defense in the eyes of the women, the way they no longer cowered before them. Whispers of rebellion reached their ears, and they grew increasingly uneasy. The day came when the elders could no longer ignore the signs of dissent. They summoned Nkem and the other women to the village square, demanding to know what they had been doing in secret. The entire village gathered, tension hanging thick in the air. Nkem stood at the forefront, her heart pounding. She could feel the eyes of the village upon her, could see the fear in the faces of the other women, but she also saw something else, a quiet strength, a determination that had been born from their shared suffering. The chief elder Okonkwo stepped forward, his voice booming. Nkem, Ezine, you have been accused of defying the custom of our ancestors. What do you have to say for yourselves? Nkem's heart raised, but she took a deep breath and stepped forward. We have done nothing wrong, Nnai Okonkwo. We have only sought to learn, to grow, to live our lives in a way that honors both the past and the future. We want change. We can't continue to live like this. The crowd murmured in response, a mixture of curiosity and fear in their eyes. Okonkwo narrowed his gaze at Nkem. You speak of learning and growth, but at what cost? You risking angering the gods and bringing their wrath upon us all? Our customs have kept us safe for generations. Who are you to challenge them? The elders exchanged uneasy glance, their authority suddenly questioned by the very people they sought to control. Nkem felt a surge of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, they would listen. But Okonkwo was not ready to surrender his power so easily. You speak of change, but changes brings uncertainty. How will we ensure the survival of our lineage if we abandon the ways of our ancestors? Eze, who had been watching from the sideline, stepped forward now. We ensure our survival by embracing education, by empowering our women to be strong and self-sufficient. Our children must inherit not just names, but a future free from fear and oppression. We can teach them to honor the past while building a better future. The crowd began to murmur again, this time with a different tone. The idea of a future where their daughters and sons could live without fear was appealing, but it was also threatening. Change was never easy, especially in a village so steeped in tradition. Okonkwo's face twisted in anger, his voice rising. And what if the gods punished us for this rebellion? What if our crops fail, our children fall ill, our enemies overrun us? Will you take responsibility for the ruin you bring upon us? Nkem stepped forward, her voice steady. If the gods are just, they will not punish us for seeking to live in truth and love. If they do, then we will face that together as a village. But we cannot continue to live in fear. We cannot continue to sacrifice our women and children to custom that no longer serves us. There was a long pause, the air thick with tension. Then a voice from the crowd, a woman named Amara, whose daughter had recently been forced into a similar marriage, called out, Nkem is right. I have lost too much to these traditions. My daughter deserves a chance to live, to love freely. We all do. One by one, other voices joined in, women and men alike, until the square was filled with a chorus of support. The elders, seeing the tide turning against them, hesitated. Okonkwo's face was a mask of fury, but even he could see that the village was slipping from his grip. Finally, Okonkwo raised his hand for silence. If you wish to abandon the ways of our ancestors, so be it. But know this, the gods will judge us all. You may have your change, but the consequences will be yours to bear. With that, he turned and walked away, the other elders following reluctantly. The crowd dispersed slowly, the air still thick with the uncertainty of what was to come. In the days that followed, the women of Umuagu began to take control of their own lives. They continued their secret meetings, no longer fearing the wrath of the elders. They taught each other skills, trade goods, and support one another in their new freedom. Nkem became a leader in this quiet revolution, guiding others with the strength and wisdom she had gained. The village began to change, slowly but surely. As the old ways were replaced by the new ones, women were no longer forced into marriage with the dead. Instead, they were free to choose their own paths, to marry for love or not at all. The children born in this new era grew up in a world where fear no longer ruled their lives. They learned to honor the past without being bound by it, and to look to the future with hope and determination. They inherited not just names, but a legacy of courage and change. And as for Nkem, she found peace in the knowledge that she had helped to break the cycle of oppression that had gripped her village for so long. She had faced the darkness of fear and emerged into the light of hope. And in doing so, she had changed not just her own fate, but the fates of generations to come. The story of Umuagu became a legend told to children as a tale of bravery and resilience. It was a reminder that even the oldest, most oppressive tradition could be challenged and changed, and it was a testament to the power of one's voice, speaking out against injustice, to inspire a whole village to rise up and reclaim their lives.